The doors clicked shut. Everyone looked at each other nervously. The mansion, once a home, now felt like a courtroom. Edward sat in his chair, no longer the weak, dying man. He was the billionaire again, the empire builder, the man who crushed competitions and built kingdoms. Sit down, all of you. They sat. Even Laura, who had been trying to edge toward the door. 6 months ago, I asked myself a question. Do I have a family, or do I have employees waiting for me to die? Edward's eyes swept across them. Tonight, I have my answer. Father, please, Michael started. Shut up, Michael. You had 6 months to talk. Now it's my turn. Edward leaned forward. Let's start with you. My firstborn. The one I raised to be a leader. Do you know what I found out about you? Michael's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. You've been meeting with Patterson Industries for 3 years. 3 years. Long before I got sick. You've been planning to sell parts of my company the moment you took over. You called it restructuring. I call it betrayal. The company was too big. We needed to downsize. Downsize by selling our most profitable divisions? Edward slammed his hand on the armrest. You would have destroyed in 5 years what took me 40 years to build. He pulled out a folder and threw it at Michael's feet. Read it, page by page. Every secret meeting, every handshake deal, every piece of silver you sold me for. Michael picked up the folder with shaking hands. His face grew paler with each page. Edward turned to Daniel. And you, my clever son, the numbers genius. $2 million. You thought I wouldn't notice? It was insurance. Daniel exploded. You always favored Michael. I knew when you died, he'd push me out of the company. I was protecting my future. By stealing from me? From the company that feeds you, clothes you, gave you everything. You gave me nothing. Daniel stood up, his face red. Everything went to Michael. The attention, the training, the trust. I was always second, always the backup plan. So you became a thief to prove you weren't second? Edward's voice was like a whip. Congratulations. Now you're not second, Daniel. You're last. Daniel sat down heavily, his hands covering his face. Sophia tried to stand up. I need to go. Sit down, Sophia. Edward's voice stopped her cold. $3 million. Gambling debts. Russian loan sharks. Do you understand how dangerous that is? Do you know what those people do when you don't pay? I have a problem, okay? Sophia's voice cracked. I'm addicted. I need help. You needed help 3 years ago when it started. Instead, you kept gambling, kept losing, kept borrowing. And when I got sick, you saw your solution. Take my money, pay your debts, continue your addiction. That's not true. Then explain these. Edward threw another folder. Casino receipts. Loan agreements. And this. He pulled out a single paper. A forged power of attorney with my signature. You were going to sell my properties while I was dying and keep the money. Sophia burst into tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry you did it or sorry you got caught. She had no answer. Finally, Edward turned to Laura. She sat straight, her face a mask of composure, but her hands trembled slightly. And then there's you, my wife, my partner for 25 years. Edward, let me explain. Explain what? How long you've been sleeping with Marcus Okonkwo? The phone record go back 3 years, Laura. 3 years. So which anniversary were we celebrating when you started your affair? Our 20th? 21st. Laura's mask cracked. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You waited for me to die because divorce would cost you money. You pretended to care, counted down the days, and planned your escape with my money. I was lonely, Laura finally shouted, standing up. You were never home. Always working, always building, always chasing the next billion. When was the last time you took me to dinner? When was the last time you asked about my day? When was the last time you saw me as anything other than the wife of Edward Okafor? The room went silent. Edward stared at her. So, it's my fault you're a cheater? It's your fault you lost me years ago. Laura's voice broke. I'm not proud of what I did. But don't act like you're innocent. You chose money over family. You chose empire over love. And now you're surprised that you're alone? Those words hit Edward harder than anything else that night. He sat back, quiet for a moment. Emma watched her father, seeing the pain in his eyes. You're right, Edward said finally. I did choose work over family. I thought providing was the same as loving. I thought money could replace time. He looked at Laura. But you didn't try to fix it. You didn't tell me you were unhappy. You just found someone else and waited for me to die. Laura wiped her eyes. What did you expect me to do? You don't listen. You never listened. I'm listening now. Too late, but I'm listening. Edward turned to Emma, his voice softening. And then there's you. Emma looked up, tears on her face. You moved back home. You quit your social life. You sat with me day and night. You never asked about the will. You never calculated your inheritance. You just loved me. Because you're my father, Emma said simply. That's all that matters. Edward felt his eyes burning. Thomas investigated everyone. Do you know what he found about you? Emma shook her head. Nothing. No debts. No secrets. No schemes. You volunteer at the children's hospital twice a week, using your own money. You live in a small apartment, even though you could afford better. Your friends say you're the kindest person they know. And when I was dying, you were the only one who cried real tears. Emma couldn't hold back anymore. She ran to her father and hugged him. I don't care about your money, Daddy. I never did. I just wanted you to be okay. Edward held his daughter, and for the first time in 6 months, he felt something close to peace. The rest of the family watched in silence, shame written on their faces. Edward gently pushed Emma back and stood up. Now we get to the consequences. Consequences? Laura asked nervously. Did you think this was just about exposing you? No. Actions have consequences. Let me tell you what happens next. He walked to Michael first. You're fired from Okafor Industries. Effective immediately. Your corporate accounts are frozen. The company car, the expense account, the penthouse apartment we pay for all gone. You'll also be investigated for corporate espionage. If charges are filed, that's on you. Michael's face went purple. You can't do this. I'm your son. You were my son. Now you're just a corporate criminal I haven't prosecuted yet. Edward moved to Daniel. You're also fired. The $2 million you stole will be deducted from your inheritance. Also, I'm filing a police report. Embezzlement is a crime, Daniel. You'll probably face charges. Daniel looked like he might be sick. Edward stood in front of Sophia. His voice softened slightly. You need help. Real help. I've enrolled you in a rehabilitation program in Switzerland. It's 1 year, residential, no exceptions. If you complete it, we'll talk about your future. If you don't, you're out of the family for good. Sophia nodded, crying. Thank you, Daddy. Finally, Laura. Edward looked at his wife of 25 years. I'm filing for divorce. You'll get what the prenup states, $5 million. Not half of $5 billion. $5 million. The prenup you signed before we got married. Laura's eyes widened. $5 million? But I've been your wife for 25 years. And you've been Marcus's mistress for 3. The prenup has an infidelity clause. You should have read it more carefully. Edward's voice was cold. You'll leave this house tomorrow. Take your personal belongings. Everything else stays. Laura stood frozen, her perfect life crumbling around her. One more thing, Edward added. I'm cutting off everyone's credit cards, bank accounts, and allowances. Michael, Daniel, Sophia, you're all adults. Time to learn how to earn your own money instead of waiting for mine. This is insane. Michael shouted. You're destroying the family. I'm not destroying it, Michael. You all did that. I'm just cleaning up the mess. Thomas stepped forward with a new folder. The new will has been prepared and signed. It's quite simple. Everyone held their breath. Emma Okafor will inherit 60% of Edward's wealth and controlling interest in Okafor Industries. Emma gasped. What? No, Daddy, that's too much. Quiet, sweetheart. Let him finish. Thomas continued. 20% will be placed in a charitable trust, managed by Emma, for education and health care in underserved communities. Edward nodded. Something that matters. Not just money sitting in accounts. The remaining 20% will be held in trust for Michael, Daniel, and Sophia. They will each receive a monthly allowance of $10,000. If they can prove they've held honest employment for 5 consecutive years, they'll get full access to their share. If not, their portion goes to charity. $10,000 a month? Michael sputtered. That's nothing. That's more than most people make. Edward shot back. Learn to live on it. What about rehabilitation? Sophia asked quietly. Will I still get the allowance if I'm in treatment? Yes, Edward said gently. The allowance starts when you enter the program. But Sophia, if you gamble even once after you get out, you lose everything. Understood? She nodded. I understand. After everyone else had left, Michael and Daniel storming out, Laura crying as she went upstairs to pack, Sophia calling the treatment center, Emma sat with her father in his study. I can't accept this, Daddy, she said quietly. It's too much responsibility. Edward poured 2 glasses of brandy. He'd never let her drink with him before, but tonight she was no longer just his little girl. She was the heir to an empire. You're the only one I trust. The only one who sees people, not assets. That's what the company needs. But I don't know anything about real estate. You'll learn. And Emma, you won't be alone. Mrs. Adiz is brilliant. I have lawyers, advisors, a whole team. But they need a leader with integrity. Someone who won't sell her soul for profit. Emma sipped the brandy, thinking, what about Michael and Daniel? Will they come back? That depends on them. If they grow up, learn humility, become better men, yes, there's a place for them. But if they stay greedy and entitled, he shook his head. Then they're on their own. And Mother, Edward's face hardened. Your mother made her choice. She'll be comfortable with $5 million. More than comfortable. But she's no longer part of this family. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Daddy, why didn't you tell me? About the test? I was so scared. I thought you were really dying. Because I needed to see your real reaction. If you knew it was fake, you might have acted differently. But Emma, your love was genuine. That's all that matters. She leaned her head on his shoulder, just like when she was a little girl. I'm still scared. What if I fail? What if I can't run the company? Then you'll learn from your mistakes and try again. That's what I did. I failed 100 times before I succeeded. But I never stopped trying, and I never compromised my integrity. I'll try, Daddy. I promise I'll try. The next morning, the mansion was different. Quieter. Emptier. Laura left at dawn. A car, full of suitcases, her face hidden behind sunglasses. She didn't say goodbye. Michael and Daniel came by to collect their belongings from the office. They didn't speak to Edward. They didn't look at Emma. They just took their things and left. Sophia was packing for Switzerland. Emma helped her, both sisters crying. I'm sorry, Sophia said. For everything. For being selfish. For not seeing what really mattered. It's not too late to change, Emma replied. A year from now, you can come back different. Better. Will Daddy forgive me? Emma smiled. He already has. That's why he's giving you another chance. At noon, a car came to take Sophia to the airport. Edward hugged his daughter at the door. 1 year, he said firmly. Complete the program. Face your demons. Come back strong. I will, Daddy. I promise. The following Monday, Emma walked into Okafor Industries for her first day as deputy CEO. The building was glass and steel, 60 floors of power and prestige. Employees stared as she walked through the lobby. Some whispered, the young daughter. No experience. How could she possibly run this place? Mrs. Adiz met her at the executive floor. Welcome, Miss Okafor. Ready for your first board meeting? Emma took a deep breath. Ready as I'll ever be. The boardroom was intimidating. 20 executives, all older, all experienced, all watching her skeptically. Edward sat at the head of the table, but he gestured for Emma to stand. Ladies and gentlemen, Edward announced. This is Emma Okafor, your new deputy CEO. In 1 year, when I fully retire, she'll become CEO. I expect you all to teach her, support her, and respect her. One board member, an older man named Richard, cleared his throat. With all due respect, Edward, she has no business experience. Perhaps one of the more experienced executives should. Should what? Edward's voice was sharp. Take advantage of a transition period to grab power? I've seen enough of that in my own family. Richard, Emma has something more valuable than experience. She has integrity. But the Singapore deal, the Patterson situation, the international clients will all be handled appropriately. Emma won't make decisions alone. She'll have advisors, but she'll make them with honesty and ethics. Something my sons clearly lacked. The room went silent. Emma stepped forward. I know I have a lot to learn. I know many of you question whether I belong here. I question it too. But I promise you this, I'll work harder than anyone. I'll listen. I'll learn. And I'll never lie to you or cheat you. If that's not enough, Then I understand. She sat down, her heart pounding. Richard studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Fair enough. Let's see what you can do. 2 weeks into Emma's training, disaster struck. The Patterson deal Michael had tried to push through was unraveling. Patterson Industries was threatening to sue for breach of contract. They claimed Michael had promised them the Singapore properties, and now Okafor Industries was backing out. Emma sat in Edward's office, panicking. What do we do? They're demanding $50 million in damages. Edward remained calm. First, what does the contract say? Emma pulled out the papers. She'd been studying them for days. Michael signed a letter of intent, but it wasn't a binding contract. He didn't have board approval. Good. What else? Patterson wants those properties because they're planning a massive development. They need our land to complete their project. Edward smiled. So we have leverage. Leverage? Sophia broke down. Because nothing else matters. Because I feel empty. Because I'm the middle daughter nobody cares about. There it was. The truth she'd been hiding for years. Emma is perfect. Michael is the heir. Daniel is the smart one. I'm just there. So I gamble because when I'm at the casino, I matter. People notice me. I'm somebody, but you're not somebody. You're pretending to be somebody with your father's money. Those words hurt, but they were true. Over the months, Sophia learned to face herself, to understand her addiction, to build real self-worth instead of borrowed significance. She started teaching art to local children. She discovered she was good with kids, patient, kind, real. By month 10, she was leading group therapy sessions, helping other gambling addicts. By month 12, when her father came to visit for her graduation from the program, she was different. Not the superficial, empty woman who'd left, but someone genuine, someone real. Daddy, she said, hugging him tight. Thank you for giving me another chance. Edward held his daughter, seeing the change in her eyes. Are you ready to come home? Yes, but I want to do something different. I don't want to work at the company. I want to open a rehabilitation center here in our city. For people like me. Edward smiled. Then let's do it. Together. 1 year after the test began, Emma called a family meeting. This time it was different. She was the one sending the invitations. She was the one running the show. Sophia came, looking healthy and clear-eyed. Michael and Daniel came, both looking humbler, rougher around the edges, more real. Laura was not invited. They gathered in the mansion's dining room, the same room where everything had fallen apart a year ago. Edward sat at the head of the table, but he gestured for Emma to stand. Thank you all for coming, Emma said. This past year has been hard for everyone. We lost a lot, but maybe we also found something. Michael spoke first. I found humility, working a regular job, living in a regular apartment. I hated it at first, but I learned what real people deal with every day. I learned that money doesn't make you better than anyone. Daniel nodded. I found honesty, paying back what I stole, working under probation, having my life monitored. It stripped away every excuse. I stole because I felt entitled. Now I know I wasn't. Sophia smiled. I found myself. For the first time in my life, I'm not pretending. I'm not performing. I'm just me. And that's enough. Emma looked at her father. Daddy taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty, love, sacrifice. This year, I learned how to be a CEO, but more importantly, I learned what really matters. Edward stood up. Michael, Daniel, I have a proposal. Both brothers looked up, surprised. You've worked honest jobs for a year. You've lived on your allowances. You've changed. I see that. So I'm offering you both positions at Okafor Industries. Not executive positions. Not corner offices. Entry-level management. You'll earn your way up like everyone else. Michael and Daniel looked at each other. What do you say? Edward asked. Michael stood up. I accept. And Father, I'm sorry. For everything. For betraying you. For being greedy. For losing sight of what matters. Daniel stood up too. I accept. And I'm sorry too. For stealing. For dishonoring your trust. For being a fool. Edward hugged both his sons. It was the first time in a year they'd touched. Sophia stood next. Daddy, I start my rehabilitation center next month. I'd like you to be there for the opening. I wouldn't miss it for the world. 3 months later, the Singapore project with Patterson Industries was completed. The joint development was a massive success. The properties were worth not 80 million, but over 120 million. Okafor Industries' 60% share brought in 72 million in profit. James Patterson personally called Emma. "Miss Okafor, I'll admit, I doubted you. But you turn out to be the best business partner I've ever had. How about we discuss another project?" Emma smiled. "Send me the proposal. I'll review it. Will your father be involved?" "My father retired. I'm the CEO now." There was a pause, then Patterson laughed. "Even better. I prefer working with you anyway." The board meeting that afternoon was triumphant. Emma presented the final numbers, and the board erupted in applause. Richard, the skeptical board member from her first day, stood up. "I'll admit it. I was wrong. You're not just Edward's daughter. You're a CEO in your own right." Emma felt her father's pride from across the room. He nodded at her, a small smile on his face. She'd proven herself. In France, Laura watched the news. Okafor Industries had just been named Company of the Year. Emma was on the cover of Business Weekly magazine. "The new face of ethical business," the headline read. Laura stared at her daughter's picture. Emma looked confident, strong, everything Laura had never been. She picked up her phone and dialed. Emma answered on the third ring. "Hello, Mother." "Emma, I saw the magazine. Congratulations." "Thank you." Silence. "Emma, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I destroyed our family. But I want you to know, I'm proud of you. You became everything I should have been." Emma's voice softened slightly. "Mother, I don't hate you. I'm just disappointed. You had everything, and you threw it away for a man who didn't even love you." I know that now. Marcus left. I'm alone, and I realize I deserve to be. You don't have to be alone forever, but you have to accept responsibility. Stop blaming Daddy for your choices." "I do. I accept it. All of it." Laura's voice broke. "Is there any chance I could see you? Come home. Not to the mansion. I know that's impossible. But maybe we could have coffee? Talk." Emma thought for a long moment. "I'll think about it. But Mother, if we rebuild anything, it has to be real. No more lies. No more games. No more lies," Laura promised. "I swear." 2 years after the test, the Okafor family gathered again. This time, it was at Sophia's Rehabilitation Center. The grand opening. A beautiful building that would help hundreds of people fight their addictions. Edward stood at the podium, looking at his children. Michael was director of operations at Okafor Industries, having worked his way up. Daniel was CFO, managing finances with strict oversight and complete transparency. Emma was CEO, leading the company to record profits while maintaining ethical standards. Sophia was running her center, saving lives. 2 years ago, I thought I'd lost my family, Edward said. I thought greed had destroyed everything I'd built. But I was wrong. I hadn't lost my family. I just lost my way as a father. He looked at Emma. I raised my children to value money over character, to see success as wealth instead of integrity. That was my mistake. But Emma showed me different. She showed all of us that success means nothing if you lose yourself to get it. Emma stood beside her father, holding his hand. Edward continued, I'm proud of all my children. Michael, you learned humility. Daniel, you learned honesty. Sophia, you learned self-worth. And Emma, you always knew what mattered. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. After the speeches, after the ribbon cutting, after the celebration, the family gathered privately in Sophia's office. What about Mother? Sophia asked quietly. Emma sighed. I've been talking to her. She's different. Changed. She wants to come home. Home where? Michael asked. Not the mansion, Emma clarified. But maybe back to the city. Close to us. A chance to rebuild. Edward was quiet for a long moment. Everyone waited for his answer. I won't stop her, he finally said. But I won't forgive her either. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She can come back to the city. She can see you all. But our marriage is over. That door is closed. Fair enough, Daniel said. Emma nodded. I'll tell her. That evening, Edward and Emma sat in his study. Just the two of them. Daddy, can I ask you something? Anything. Were you ever really afraid? During the test? That you'd lose us all? Edward poured 2 glasses of whiskey. Terrified. Every single day. I thought I'd discover I had no family at all. Just 4 strangers who shared my DNA. But you found us. Eventually. I found you immediately. The rest of you took some time. He smiled. But you all came back. Different, but better. Emma took a sip. What about Mother? Do you think she really changed? I don't know. People can change, Emma. But trust takes years to rebuild. She destroyed 25 years of marriage in one affair. That doesn't heal overnight. Do you still love her? Edward thought carefully. I love the woman I married 25 years ago. But that woman doesn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. Maybe I was just too blind to see. That's sad. It is. But it's also freeing. I spent so many years building an empire that I forgot to build a life. Now I have a second chance. And I'm not wasting it. He raised his glass. To second chances. To real family. To knowing the difference between what's valuable and what's just expensive. Emma clinked her glass against his. To family. 5 years after the test, Edward Okafor stood at the window of his study, looking at the city below. He was 67 now, fully retired. Emma ran Okafor Industries with skill and integrity. The company had doubled in value under her leadership. Michael was a senior executive, well-respected, no longer arrogant. He'd married a teacher he met at a charity event, and they had 2 children. Daniel had paid back every cent he'd stolen and was now the company's most trusted financial advisor. He'd written a book about his mistakes called The Price of Greed, which had become a bestseller. Sophia's rehabilitation center had expanded to 3 locations. She'd helped over 500 people recover from gambling addiction. She'd found her purpose. And Laura? She'd moved back to the city, living in a modest apartment. She saw her children occasionally, but Edward had divorced her. They were civil but distant. She'd learned to live with the consequences of her choices. Edward's phone rang. It was Emma. Daddy, can you come to the office? There's something I want to show you. An hour later, Edward stood in the Okafor Industries boardroom. The entire board was there, along with his children. What's this about? Edward asked. Emma smiled. We're unveiling the new company logo. A screen lit up behind her. The Okafor Industries logo was the same, but with a new tagline beneath it. Built on character. Sustained by integrity. Led by family. We voted unanimously, Emma said, to add the Okafor family values as our official company mission. Every employee, every executive, every board member, they all have to sign a pledge. No corruption, no greed, no lies. Edward felt tears in his eyes. That's perfect. Michael stood up. Father, we wanted to thank you. For testing us. For breaking us down. For building us back up. We were spoiled, entitled brats. What would you do if you discover your family was only with you for money? Comment below, like if this story moved you. Subscribe for more inspiring life stories every week. Share with someone who needs to hear this message.